Right, everything is good.
Is this?
Okay, ready?
Bhagavad Gita Trust, sorry.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 14, and today we are going to cover from 21 to 27. This is a conclusion of chapter 14 on the three gunas. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So any questions you have about these three gunas and how they work, please keep track of them. We'll have plenty of time to address them. All right, so we're going to start with two readings, one by David and one by me, and then we will have Yogeshwar read it in Sanskrit and talk about it. So David, if you could read from 21 to 27.
Yes, thanks very much. Sorry for the interruption. Yes, this is from the Bhagavad Gita Trust. So chapter 14, verse 21, beginning. Arjuna said, O Lord, by which symptoms is known transcendent of these three modes of material nature? What is the behavior and how to transcend these three modes of material nature? Lord Krishna said, one who feels no resentment at the appearance of illumination, activity as well as illusion, O Arjuna, nor desires their cessation, one who neutrally situated is not disturbed by the three modes of material nature, one who remains firmly poised without wavering, knowing that the modes of material nature are the performer, one who is equipoised in happiness and distress, firmly situated internally, regarding equally a lump of earth, a stone, or gold, equally disposed towards the desirable and the undesirable, in honor and dishonor, equal to friends and enemies, abandoning all endeavors for activity and renunciation. One is declared transcendental to the three modes of material nature. One who, by science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness in pure loving devotion, rendering unadulterated service exclusively unto me, such a one completely surmounts these three modes of material nature and qualifies for the elevation to the realized platform of the ultimate truth. Verily, I am the original foundation of the ultimate truth and of eternal righteousness, of imperishable immortality and absolute transcendental bliss.
Thank you. I'm going to read Sri Aurobindo's translation from 21 to 27. Arjuna said, what are the signs of the man who has risen above the three gunas, O Lord? What his action, and how does he surmount the gunas? Give me just a second here. Okay. The Blessed Lord said, he, O Pandav, who does not abhor or shrink from the operation of enlightenment, the result of rising sattva, or impulsion to work, the result of rising rajas, or the clouding over of the mental and nervous being, the result of rising tamas, nor longs after them when they cease. He who established in a position as of one seated high above is unshaken by the gunas, who seeing that it is the gunas that are in process of action stands apart, immovable. He who regards happiness and suffering alike, gold and mud and stone as of equal value, to whom the pleasant and the unpleasant, praise and blame, honor and insult, the faction of his friends and the faction of his enemies are equal things. Who is steadfast in a wise, imperturbable, and immutable inner calm and quietude, who initiates no action, but leaves all work to be done by the gunas of nature. He is said to be above the gunas. He also who loves and strives after me with an undeviating love and adoration passes beyond the three gunas, and he too is prepared for becoming the Brahman. I, the Purushottam, am the foundation of the silent Brahman and of immortality and imperishable spiritual existence and of eternal dharma and of an utter bliss of happiness. Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Arjuna uvacha kairlingay strin gunanetan atito bhavati prabho kimachara katham chaitans strin gunanati vartate. Arjuna is asking a question from verses 19 and 20. Krishna in 19 and 20 said that leaving these three qualities out, sattva, raja, and tama, there is no any other doing the activities. If the seer can see that, then he goes beyond the three qualities. Having gone beyond the three qualities, the seer, the dehi, he goes beyond the whole substance of material, like the whole peripheral has been put aside, and now he goes beyond that. Everything that comes out of the peripheral, may it be birth or death, or old age, or any sorrows, he becomes free from that. Having said that, now Arjuna has a question. How does a person get beyond these three qualities? Kair lingai trin guna netan atito bhavati prabhu. Kimachara. Not only how do you get beyond these three qualities, but how does a person behave? What are his characteristics after he has gone beyond these three qualities? All these questions around Arjuna, because Arjuna wants to know first, if you know the qualities, then you can make it a target, you can make it a goal and go towards that. Then you also need the path through which you can get to the goal. If you have a goal, you don't have a path, then how do you reach the goal? There's no way, there's no road. If you have a path and you don't have a goal, then you may also take other paths. You may also go on meandering around. You'll never reach where you wanted to go. So you have to know where you want to reach, and then the path through which you're going to reach there. And Arjuna is asking, write that. Kairlingai trin guna netan atito bhavati prabho. And when he's asking this question to Krishna, you can see how different these questions are now. While there was a time when Arjuna was asking the questions about how I can fight this war, or should I not fight the war? Now the type of questions Arjuna is asking here is beyond. It's not about should I fight or should I not fight. It's about how to go beyond now. And this is Krishna's doing. Krishna has, through his words, through his questions, he has made Arjuna go beyond and has made Arjuna at a state that now Arjuna doesn't have a question about whether should I or should I not. Arjuna has questions about the beyond. He has the questions about the unmanifest. He wants to know more about what the center is. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava na dveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati. Krishna here is saying that, yes, I have told you that all the three bind you, whether it is Sattva Guna that binds you with happiness and knowledge, or is it Rajogun that binds you with activity, with action, and even Tamogun binds you with laziness and sleepiness and inaction. Having said that, and also having pointing out that through Sattva Gun is how you can reach the center. You have to use a rod. But then Krishna also says that having known these three, Prakasham, meaning that which has the light, which is Sattva Gun, Pravrutim, meaning that which has action, Rajogun, and then Mohamevacha, also Tamogun, which has the aspect of delusion, which blinds your cognition. Having known all that even Tamogun will lead you away from the center, or Rajogun will keep you at the peripheral. Na dveshti sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshati. Being the seer that Krishna has pointed out in verse 19, you see that the gunas are doing their work. Whether it is being in action or being in inaction, can you see how the gunas are doing their work, how the qualities of Prakriti are doing their work? And know that Nanyam Gunebhya Kartaram Yada Drashtanupashyati, on verse 19, that it is only these three qualities that are doing all the work, because activity or work or change is attributed to Prakriti. It's attributed to these three qualities, none other. And the center is always as it is, unchanged, untouched by the three qualities. However much you may feel that one quality is taking you, it's drifting you away from somewhere, or that Tamogun is taking you away from the center. If you can see from the center that I am unchanged, whatever the qualities do, whether it is Tamogun that is taking me away from the center, I, per se, the seer, is never drifted away from the center, is never touched by the quality. Or is it Rajogun, which takes you in action and keeps you at the peripheral? If you're the seer at the center, you always know that the Rajogun never touches me. It will always keep at the peripheral. And I, the seer, is always the center. Or is it Sattva Gun, which is taking you towards the center? If you realize that this is a path, don't get attached to it. However good the path may be, It is a path and not the goal. When you are at the center and you can see that Sattva Gun is bringing me towards the center, or it's having these favorable conditions, this favorable environment inside, that it's allowing me to be at the center always, allowing me to keep away from the peripheral. However good you may feel in Sattva Gun, still, na nivrittani kankshati and na dveshti sampravrittani. You do not want one of the qualities to come, and you do not want any of the other qualities to go away. If you can be in such a state, having known all the qualities, you know how it's like right and left. How can Krishna say that something takes you towards the good, which is towards the center, and something takes you away from the center? Still, you do not want, you do not desire that I should get to the center, or you do not desire that I get nearer to the center. And you also do not say that I do not want the guna, I do not want the tamo guna that takes me away from the center. Who can say that? Not a person who has not known the gunas. If you have not known the gunas and you are saying this, then it's out of ignorance. It's because we cannot control the gunas that we are saying this. But when Krishna says this, because we are going to see even in the 17th chapter and the 18th chapter, in great detail, Krishna has explained the gunas, each and every aspect of them, right, left, and center. If Krishna can say this, na dveshti sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshati, it's totally at a different level. It's not at the level we take it to be, that let's say, we are able to go anywhere and everywhere, and yet the gunas will not touch me. However, we know in our life that the gunas touch us. Where we are right now, the gunas are touching us. Where Krishna is and where he is talking from is from the direct center. It's where he is and no guna is and no quality is where only he can be. It's like a place where only one can be. That's why we say there is only one. It's Advait at that place. There's no two. There's no Prakriti. There is also no Atma. It's only the one, the Parama Advaita that is there. Then, because if you bring up the concept of Atman, the concept of self, wherever there is self, there will also be the other. Where there is self, there's also going to be a concept of the other, because the self will have a boundary. Outside the boundary of the self, there will be another. That is the concept of being at the center. There is no experience of the other. The only experience you have is of the self, the unchanged and the constant. Udasina vadasino gunetyo na vichalyate guna vartanta ityeva yovatishtet dinangate. How will that person be? Krishna is saying this, that gunetyo na vichalyate. That person is never touched by the gunas, is never touched by the qualities of Prakriti. However fast or however pulling those qualities could be, they do not touch this center. They may be at the, even Sattva Gun, It is from the peripheral pointing towards the center. But we have to understand this, that it's pointing towards the center. It is not the center. However much they may be in our bodies, in our minds, those three qualities are, and they're always there. Still, if you can stay in the center, look at the qualities. Now, udasina vadasina. One quality you'll see is that they will not want one quality to prevail over the other. They just allow whichever quality is. Would normally think that only sattva gun takes us towards the center. But this context as well, where Krishna is saying, not even getting attached to sattva gun, that really takes you towards the center. Not getting attached to any of the gunas. When you see that a thought is coming in your mind, just look at it. If you see an emotion in your body, just look at it. If you're able to look at it and keep your distance from it, the greater the distance, the fully you can look at the thought. Because normally we normally see that if something is so near your eyes, you can't have a look at it. But when it has significant distance from yourself, then you can see that, you can see it fully, whether it's a thought, it's an emotion, or it's a guna itself. If you can see it fully, if you can understand it fully, not bit by bit, not part by part, but understanding it fully, then what happens is understanding the gunas is what takes you beyond the gunas. Not running away from the gunas, not rejecting the gunas, fully accepting them with your being and understanding each and every aspect of them, understanding them fully, understanding each and every guna on their own right, and understanding how they accept each other. Because even sattva accepts rajo, and it also accepts tamogun in itself. It is like sattva gun, for it to have any action, it has to have rajogun inside itself. It cannot act on its own. In that way, if you understand the acceptance within all the three gunas in between themselves, why do we want to accept one and leave the other? Why do we want only one, not the other two? Krishna here is saying, guna vartanta ityeva. It's only the three qualities that are doing all the activity. It's only all the three qualities that have changed within themselves. Yova tishtati nengate. Who can stay still, doesn't even move a finger. It doesn't even move a little bit. Now, Krishna here is not talking about the body. He's not also talking about the mind. He's exactly talking about the center. Because that is the place where Yova tishtati nengate can happen. Who can stay still and doesn't even move, even a little bit. That is the only place. Krishna is talking from there. And he's saying that if you can see that you are there, you are the seer of the gunas. You're not part of the gunas. If you introspect inside yourself, you will see that there is one energy that is always thinking, that is always having an emotion, that is always going towards the outside. Know that energy. Then pull back and look at that energy. There's also something that is different from that energy within your consciousness. There's also something that can look at that energy. Just look at it. There is also something that can just listen to the words that are coming from outside as well. There's also something that can also just listen to the thoughts that are there in your mind. There's also something that can just be without being touched by the emotions that are around. Also something that can just be without being attached to the concepts built, whether by yourself or by the society. Something that can just be. If you realize that, if you get to that state, then the question will be how to be constantly in that state, how to always remember that state. Now, in where I talk about remembrance of that state, smriti, samyak smriti, what Krishna would say that samyak smriti is not something you remember as a thought, or not something you remember as an external, but it is something that has always been there. It's never gone away. But remembering something that has always been there, remembering yourself, remembering who you truly are, is the smriti. If you can remember that constantly, if you can be in that state constantly, then however much your body changes, however much your thoughts change, however much your emotions change, you can be still. You can be yourself. You can be non-attached to all the peripheral and just be. That is the only time when you can be samadukha sukha swastha samaloshtashmakanchana tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma sanstutihi. When you're at the center is only when you can realize that whatever is happening, including the gunas, is at the peripheral. Then even the sorrow and the happiness is happening at the peripheral. This would be really hard, but if you can just try. When sorrow comes, do not get involved in it, but just see that sorrow has come. When happiness comes as well, see that happiness has come. See that my body is experiencing happiness. See that my mind is also experiencing happiness. But be different from it. Be at the center constantly. When you practice that, and this practice is not like any other practice, it's not something that will become a habitual process. It's something that will allow you to be, not to become. It's something that will allow you just to be. Because in Indian culture, in Indian philosophy, if you want to become something else, then there is a danger that you may become something that you are not. There is a danger that you may become something that you're not meant to be. However, the focus here is on being what you are, accepting what you are right now, and accepting the truth about it fully, not only in one aspect, but fully. And is the background noise significant?
No, it's all right. It's very low. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So swastha. Now normally swastha, even in Hindi, swastha means being in good health. But take the meanings of each and every root in there. Stha means staying. Yeah, it means seated. And then swa, meaning in yourself. Swastha meaning you can stay in yourself. You can sit in your being. You can see from there whatever is happening. Swastha, if how this word of swastha came to be, like being in good health, you can see that being in your own being is what good health is. Mentally or consciously, that is the good health. There is no better health than being swastha, than being seated in your own being. There is no better place to be. And whenever you come to the peripheral, there is something that will get attached to you, something like a disease that will get attached to you, which is not part of you. Being swastha means being away from all the diseases. Being healthy means being void of all the diseases. Taking away everything that is not you, that is not part of your body. Allowing all the bacteria to be away from your body. Allowing all the viruses to be away from your body. Only allowing what is part of your nature to remain. That is being swastha. That is being healthy in bodily terms. Now, if you take it the same way in consciousness, then just allowing what is to be, removing everything that is not, removing everything that is part of the peripheral, removing even the sattva guna, removing even the raja guna and the tamo guna from yourself. That is swastha, being in yourself, just allowing what is to be. Samaloštashma kanchana. In that place, whether it is something like gold or it is something like a stone, when you're in that state, all that is the same. Now, it's not talking about in the peripheral, making a stone and gold the same. It's not even talking about making the value the same. But for you, when you're in that state, everything else has the same value. It's like when you're flying in an aeroplane, yeah? Everything down here is almost the same for you. It's like as if even though there is a valley, it doesn't look like a valley. It's just the same. So you're in such a state at the center that everything at the peripheral, even sattva guna, looks to be the same as the peripheral because it's part of the peripheral. Any guna is part of the peripheral. So even sattva guna, when you're at that height of that state, when you're at the height of the center, then even sattva guna, which is part of the peripheral, which may have helped you to get to the center, but is not part of the center, that will look as the same as the other gunas. So you can allow them to be, however they act in your body, however they act in your mental activities, however they act in your thoughts or your emotions, just allow them to be. When that acceptance happens, that is when you'll go towards the truth. When that understanding happens is when you can go towards the truth. Tulya priya priyo dhiras. Being dhira, being steadfast. And how do you become steadfast? It's not about being rigid in something. Like in Tao Te Ching, we realize that being flexible is the greatest strength. So dhira here is not about becoming rigid, but it is this total acceptance is when you can stay in the center. Without acceptance or understanding, you'll always be moved by the peripheral. You'll always be moved by sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna. But when you have this acceptance and understanding is when you can be steadfast, not rigid, but fully flexible and strong. Tulya priya priya. Whether something brings you happiness or something brings you sorrow. Now, in the first part, they talk about sama dukha sukha. That is something that happens within your body. But what is priya? Priya is something that takes you towards sukha. It takes you towards happiness. There's this distinction between happiness itself, because everyone wants happiness. It's something that you can't qualify. But then there are also these other instruments that we use, the tools that we use to get towards happiness. And then there is the attachment towards the tools, and there's the attachment towards the happiness. There's a distinction between those two. Why you have an attachment towards the tools of happiness is because they will take you towards something that you like, the happiness, the state of happiness. That's why you have an attachment towards the tools. That attachment is qualitatively different from the attachment you have towards the happiness. Sometimes if the tools may change, you don't have a problem, as long as they take you towards what you want, which is the happiness. Not being attached towards happiness, that is one thing. And then tulya priya priya, meaning not getting attached to the instruments or to the tools that take you towards happiness, or even the tools that take you away from sorrow. Normally we have these concepts, or even the external environment, whereby we only want happiness. That is also something. And then we are running away from sorrow. It's not that we are going towards happiness. It's just that we are running away from sorrow. For example, so many things that we do and we feel that we are going towards pleasure, we need to rethink about that. Is it really giving us pleasure, or are we just running away from the sorrow that has been inflicted upon us? We have to rethink that. Because sometimes when we're in much sorrow, what will we do? We'll just go through short YouTube videos, yeah? Or we'll just go through the TV and just continue flipping channels. We don't have a goal that we want to learn something. That's not there. We just want to pass time. It's not giving us pleasure. What we're doing there is running away from the sorrow of our thoughts, running away from the sorrow of our emotions, running away from the sorrow that the whole day has brought to us. And then at night or in the evening, we just want to go through and pass time. That should not be something that you are attracted to when you're at the center. When you're at the center, there's this integration that happens. Yes, you accept everything in the peripheral, but then you do not get attached to anything. Acceptance doesn't mean attachment. Acceptance is the true form of non-attachment. When you accept and understand is when you can really get non-attached to that. Tulya nindatma sanstutihi. When somebody talks good about you, or when you've not even done something wrong, but then somebody is talking bad about you, or fighting behind your back, whatever it may be, in any of those states, you realize that what they're talking about is the peripheral. The qualities that they are talking about are qualities at the peripheral. Whether somebody is praising you, they're praising those qualities that are at your peripheral, not the qualities that are at your center. When somebody is blaming you, is it the you at the center or the you at the peripheral? Who is the you there? When you understand that the true self or the true being is at the center and not at the peripheral, then you realize that whatever is being talked about by people at this point in time, or the normal praise and the blame that you feel that I have been praised or I have been blamed upon, you certainly realize that that is just something at the peripheral. They're talking about the qualities at the peripheral. Now, some qualities may be subtle and they may be important to getting integrated or to getting to the center. But when you're at the center and you're looking at these gunas, then you realize that whether it is praise or blame of those gunas at the peripheral, it's not something that touches you. It's something that stays away from you. Mana pamana yostulya tulyo mitra ripakshayo sarvarambha parityagi gunatita sa uchyate. Mana apamana. Whether somebody, now in mana, it's not, and in apamana, it's not only blaming you, but then it is blaming you in front of everybody, like showing all your avgunas, showing all your bad qualities towards everyone. In that state, yeah, of you really feel down, like because we are so attached to our identity at the peripheral, when somebody talks bad about us in front of everyone, we are dishonored in that way. We feel our honor has been deteriorated. Why? Because we're attaching to the peripheral. We're attaching to the qualities that you have acquired at the peripheral. We are saying that I am the good person. I am the person who has the quality of donations. I am the person who always donates my things to the people in need. It's a good thing to do. But then you being attached is where the problem comes. You should always be at the center. And then when somebody talks good about you and then honors you in front of other people, talking about your good qualities, whether it's of donation or your good deeds, or even these subtle qualities that you may have within yourself. Why I'm even saying within yourself at this point in time is because we understand ourselves as that. We have not yet gotten to the center or the true self that we are. But then how we view ourselves right now, we see that these qualities are within us. We are the people who attach to these qualities so much. Now, Krishna here is saying, if you just leave the attachment, let it be, then you realize that, am I those qualities, or can I stay without those qualities as well? Am I this person who is always being talked about in public and in a good way? Or am I this person who is different from that as well? Tulya mitra aripakshayoh. Being at the center, you realize that being at the center, you become the judge. You do not become somebody who is being judged. When you're somebody who is being judged, you'll take one side because you like that one side. Whether it's a friend or it's an enemy. Here, Krishna is saying that don't take sides. What you need to do is listen to both of them, like a judge listens to both sides. When you've listened to both of them, yes, you'll take a side, but then it will be out of non-attachment. It will be, even now, sometimes, even your friends could be wrong and your enemies could be right. But how do you know that? When you're not attached to your friends and you can be in the middle as a judge, listen to both sides, whether it's your friend or your enemy, weigh both of them, and then see that what is good and what is bad. We normally want and we normally think that people who are around us or who are close to us, our relatives, our friends, they are the only people who can be right. Sometimes we have such concepts, even though we don't have a concept right now, but then when they are in difficulty or when they have done wrong onto another person, you'll only listen to them and you'll not listen to the other person. These subtle activities that happen at that moment is what shows you that you are not impartial to both parties. You're taking a side of one party. You're only looking at this, you're looking only through the lenses of somebody you're attached to. But when you're at the center, you can look through the lens of everyone. You can look through the lens of the truth, the lens of the truth. Sarva arambha parityagi, gunatita so uchyate. Krishna here is saying that somebody who does not even start anything, sarva arambha parityagi, how could that person be? And normally, as we are, we feel that if we do not start anything, how will we be able to proceed in our lives? If we don't even start anything, how are we ever even able to provide for our families or provide for ourselves? We need to do something. Krishna is not saying don't do anything, but Krishna here is saying sarva arambha parityagi. He does not start anything in a way that when you start something, it is a constraint for you, that you have to keep it going. Krishna here is saying, allow the gunas to do their work. In yourself, do not reject Rajoguna, because Rajoguna will allow you to do the work. So just allow Rajoguna to do the work. When you're in constraint is when you'll have to make Rajoguna do the work. And then you'll feel that, oh yes, I have done something. But when you're allowing Rajoguna to do the work, you have not done anything. It's the Rajoguna that has done something out of you. That's when you'll realize that the gunas on themselves, they're the ones that are working. Going again to verse 19, that Nanyam gunebhya kartara. There's no any other that does the actions apart from the gunas. So allow them. Don't be the one who is doing the work. But when you allow the gunas to do the work, you realize that they do the work out of your hobbies. Because when you start doing your hobby, you'll not even feel that you've started something. You'll not be constrained by any outside factors. You'll also not need to be told that now you need to stop doing it, or you need to start doing it, or you need to continue doing it. All those constraints are removed. When your Rajoguna allows you to do it, you'll do it. When your Tamoguna tells you stop it, you'll stop it. That is activity from the center. It's something that your Atman is there, integrated. Now you see, the center, how we have talked about it so far, is by its own right. Now, Krishna is talking about the integration with the peripheral. It's never void of the peripheral. That's also something we need to know. When it's integrated to the peripheral, that means whatever is happening, allow it to happen. Whether it's Rajogun, Tamogun, or Sattvagun, allow it to happen. When you allow it to happen, it will happen from the center. integrated from the center, because it's not disintegrated from the center. It is linked to the center. In that way, if you allow the gunas to do their work, everything will happen from the center. Don't think that everything will become chaos, but everything will be integrated from the center, and it will have one place from which everything is running now. There will not be different places where you need to run towards, but you will just be in one place and everything will be handled from there. Gunatita sa uccha. That being is called Gunatita, is said to be beyond the three qualities. Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Certainly Krishna here is now saying that, look at this one verse now. We've been talking about the seer and the seen and the action of seeing, the three aspects. Now Krishna here is saying that he who with unconditional love, yeah, avyapicharena, meaning that which does not go into so many other faculties, it's staying as one, and it is unconditional love, bhakti yogena. He who does with all this unconditional love, and then what does he do? Mam sevate. Here seva meaning that whereby when you are in constant service of the center, or when you're in constant service of any other person, let it be, certainly get the qualities of that person, because those qualities brush upon you. There's no time you can be with a person and the qualities of that person don't brush upon you. And when that happens with utmost love, you realize that even though you do not want the qualities, they just come upon you. Those qualities just, not even just for your body, but even beyond your mind, those qualities go. And when Krishna is saying this, one aspect we can take about it is looking at Arjuna and looking at Krishna in that aspect. One way we can look at this is Krishna is telling Arjuna, be with me and always have your mind within me. If your mind is always within me, you'll certainly realize that, first you'll start by contemplating on what Krishna is. Using that contemplation, even that contemplation will die away when you realize what Krishna is, who Krishna is at the center. Because who Krishna is not the body, is not the mind, is not the emotions, and is not also the intellect. But what Krishna is something more at the core. If you're always at the core, avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. If you're with such a person who is always at the core, you also know the science of being at the core. You also get the practice of being at the core. Those qualities of that person, it can't be that they don't brush upon you. Sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Such a person will go beyond these three qualities. Talking about the three qualities gives us an aspect about what they are. And then being with such a person or listening from such a person who has gone beyond these three qualities it gives a different perspective because he has lived it, being beyond the three qualities. If you're in front of such a person, then you can also know how to go beyond, how to live a life beyond these three qualities. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And another way to look at this is also what Krishna is the center, even the center of who you are. So the center there, who you are, basically the center, not the peripheral, but the center. Yo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. If you're always and constantly in utmost and unconditional love with the center of your own being, and that too being avyabhicharena, it shouldn't go on going to the peripheral and then the center, peripheral and the center. It should always be at the center, always pointing towards the center. If you're with in utmost love and that unconditional, because if there's a condition, what will happen is that if that condition is not met, you'll again run back to the peripheral. Being at the center unconditionally, what will happen? Sagunan samatityaitan. He will go beyond these three qualities. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And he will always stay at the center, always stay at the center of being. And he will know the truth, what Brahma is. And that condition of bhakti, let's just also talk about bhakti as well, since that topic has been brought about in verse 26. Bhakti is not something that we normally know about or how it is being shown to us. Sometimes what we view bhakti as is you have to go to a person and then just, in a weird way, you just have to leave all your thoughts and accept whatever he says. That's not bhakti. Yeah? Bhakti is about integration of your jnana, your yoga, your dhyana, your concentration, and your knowledge as well. And then your love, all integrated into one. That is the only time you can love. You can't love when you are making out that love. When you make love, you're not loving. When that love comes from within is when love can arise. How can you say that I will love, but I'll keep all my understanding aside? That doesn't happen because understanding, as we know right now, is part of us. We cannot run away from something to get love. Love is part of life. Take the understanding, take the concentration, take the action, everything together, and then love will arise. And love should arise from the integration of all those faculties, not as a separate being, not as a separate entity. That if I want to love, I just have to leave everything that I know, and then I just have to fall into love. Or I just have to accept what the other is saying, however my understanding may not be at par with that person. Love doesn't arise there. And in a place you can't concentrate, or with a person you can't concentrate, love doesn't arise. You need utmost concentration for love to arise. And how will you show your love? Or how will that love even arise if you're not even doing actions towards the love? If you can't put the love into actions, if you can't show your love through the action, how is that love part of you? How can love just be inside and not be able to show it outside? It's part of everything. It's part of your action. It's part of your understanding. and it's part of your concentration. Don't run away from the other faculties to get onto one faculty. Talking about the four now, the four of them, whether it is Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Karma Yoga, all the four of them, take them together, because you're not one. You are an integration of all of them. You can't say that I am only emotions. No, you have emotions, you have thoughts as well. You also have actions within yourself, which also has the aspect of the action of your mind, meaning the thoughts. And then you also have the intellect, which is the Jnana Yoga. And you also have the faculty of concentration. There's nothing that you don't have. So that integration and flowering with all the four together, not rejecting any of them, but having all the four together at once, is what Krishna is saying is full integration of the core and the center, the core, which is the center, and the peripheral, all together. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amrutasya veyasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya ekantikasya cha. Krishna is now talking about the center. What is the center? I am the center. Brahmano hi pratisthaham. I am pratishtha. I am that which is always still, steadfast. It never moves. And everything that is created is around this that never moves. Amritasya avyayasya cha pratishtha. I am also that which stays in the middle of Amrita, meaning that which doesn't die at all. It's always there. Amritasya pratishtha aham. I am that which keeps Amrita as it's supposed to be. Because if you don't have, just imagine a wheel that doesn't have a center. Can't be. But then the wheel moves at the center. It moves along the center. And you'll certainly realize that the center itself, per se, that which the wheel will move on, will not move. It will be there. It will just be there, unmoved. But it will be the cause by which the whole wheel is moving. Amritasya pratishtha aham. Avyayasya cha pratishtha aham. I am also that which keeps the unmoving together. Shasvatasya cha dharmasya. I am also the pratishtha. I am also the steadfastness of dharma. Swadharma. Dharma is not something that is impacted upon us from outside. Dharma is not something that are the norms that are given to us. It's not something that can be created from the outside. Dharma is something that is only created from the inside. Dharma are those qualities, whether you call them ahimsa or brahmacharya. Don't talk about the ahimsa that other people talk about, that you should do. But think about the ahimsa that comes from the core, from inside. You can't harm the other because it's part of you. How can you harm the other? That is the true dharma. That is the true nature of being. How can you not like the other when he's part of you? Not even part of you. There's no you and the other. How can you hurt the other? Or how can you not like the other? How can you dislike the other? It's part of you. That is dharma now. But what happens is, such people who are in dharma, we'll have these qualities at the peripheral that we will look at. And then we'll say, this is a good person through our lenses. Yes, that is a good person, but not because he's doing right at the peripheral, but because that righteousness is coming from the center. And it's only when that righteousness is coming from the center that it can flourish to the outside. It's from the within that it can come to the without. Sukhasya, ekantikasya cha. If you want happiness, ekantika. Ekantika means that which does not go away. It's not like this arrow that will only go towards one direction. Eka antika yasya. So antika meaning goal, and eka meaning one. So that which has only one goal. And if you have one goal, you have one direction. You can't have so many directions and say, I have one goal only. When you have one goal, you'll always be in that one direction. And that happiness that has only one direction, normally we'll see that happiness, we can get it through so many tools at the peripheral. But that which has only one direction, and that one direction is towards the center. That happiness is ekantika. And ekantika also means that which has only one end. Now, one end, I will translate it to one goal. That's fine. That's one way. But then ekantika also means where everything ends at one place. That's where everything seems to end. It's where everything becomes one. It's where everything gets into that state whereby there is no other. There's only one. So Krishna is saying that is the pratishtha. That is where you should be, which is the center.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Yogeshwar. Folks, it's time for questions. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you'd like to ask questions. Or you can raise your hand in Zoom, whatever you prefer. We're going to start with Evanik.
Hi, Yogeshwar. Thank you again for an enlightening conversation. I just have a clarification question. Is the three qualities that you talk about, the gunas?
Yes, I try to translate it to English. Guna means quality of Prakriti.
Okay. So Shrikant had to step away for a minute. So if anyone else has a question, you can either type exclamation point in chat or raise your hand in Zoom. No questions or comments? Tania. Oh, wait, let me make sure everybody can unmute themselves.
Hi.
Okay, you can? Okay, great. Tania, you can go ahead.
Okay. So just I'm sort of jumping in midway in the lecture, so I apologize. But you know, there were points that were brought up some points that were very interesting. I've thought of as well. I do a lot of meditation, and I notice these same synchronicities that he speaks about. Sorry, I didn't get your name. I apologize. But you mentioned something about others and how we are everyone around us, and everyone around us is us. And so, you know, it does bring back a question about if whether or not we have a choice in life to be if we're stuck with family who we don't necessarily get along with, what does that say about us in terms of wanting to change or wanting to make that connection with the one? If that makes sense.
Thank you, Tanya. Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, so being around people. Now, one thing is, when you're around people, the people themselves are, let's say, it is the I and then the I of the other people that makes the tension between ourselves, that we build the tension through our ego, through the self. When that self dissolves itself, it's like there will be no the other. Why dislike them or why like them? It will just be unconditional love that will flow towards them. It's not like and you talked about choice there. So the choice is all ours, whether we want to let our ego go or we want our ego to stay. That is upon us. Do we want to get to the core of our being, or do we want to just be pushed around by the qualities? That is upon us. That is our choice. And when we realize that we have a choice to get to the center and to be who we are, who we truly are, then you realize that all the other things just fade away, whether it's your ego or the tensions between relations or the tensions between families. That doesn't affect you. But in a way to stay together, that is really important. And then even being at the core also helps you to be together as well. It doesn't take you away from the other people.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. Next up is going to be Brian, followed by Rupali. Brian.
First of all, quick comment. I do feel like I'm not struggling to understand everything this time or anymore. The last couple times. So I really appreciate that. I feel like the things you're talking about, I feel like I recognize them in my life. The one thing I'd like to clarify is I have the feeling or my recollection, as I understood when you were talking, sometimes the center is very steadfast and sometimes it seemed like it dissolves. And sometimes we don't be, well, that was the big thing. That was the one question. So if you could clarify or comment a bit on that. Did I misunderstand or just different aspects of what you're talking about?
Yes, so the center is steadfast and is, as we could say, in the middle of everything. And being in the middle of everything, it is also integrated to everything else. It's not void of the peripheral. It's like one and the same thing. But then if we don't differentiate them, then we'll not have a goal towards it. Why we're differentiating the center here is because qualitatively it's different. Yes, the center is different. But then it also has the integrations towards the peripheral. Don't leave out the links. Don't cut off the links from the peripheral. When you see the links towards the peripheral, you'll also realize that the peripheral is also part of the center in that way. Now, you may think I'm talking about it paradoxically, like the center is different and then it's part of the peripheral, but first make it different, as Krishna has pointed out, like first allow it to be apart from all the three states, the three gunas. allow it to be different. Then you'll also certainly realize that it is also part and parcel of all this being. Even the gunas are part of being. Allow it to be, because there's a state after which it comes, yeah, that when you're in such a state, you just allow what the truth is to unfold in front of you. Do not make a concept of your own. And when the gunas, when you are so vast that even the gunas are part of you, you don't get scared, because first you are what you are. And what the truth is that the manifest is part of the unmanifest. It's not on its own. So you allow it to be. First, allow it to be differentiated. And then after that, you'll have all the courage to allow it to be, to allow the manifest to be part of the unmanifest as well. Like you become broad as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. I mean, to understand it in the Western context, it's like saying there is a universal principle that is shaping everything, universal law of nature that is shaping everything. So the universal law is separate, but you see it in everything. It is shaping everything. So it is, it is that, it is kind of, it is the law of nature, of periphery, but it is the universal law. So it's one and shaping the many at the same time. Thank you. Next up, sorry, Brian, did you have a comment?
No, I logged on in two different ways. Although I do have another question is,
Go ahead.
This may indicate that I completely missed the point. I don't know. But the in this way of that you've just described, that the you can manifest, the center can manifest itself. The that to me sounds like it involves karma yoga. And I'm trying to understand the distinction between karma yoga and the Raja Guna, because both, you say the Raja Guna, you say is activity, it's action. Karma is also action or work. So how do I know, what's the distinction, and where do I want to be, and how do I know I'm there?
Excellent question. Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes. So karma yoga, or action, as we talk about it, we'll normally attribute it to, we need to have rajogun within us so that we can do any action. That's true. But then in the second chapter, Krishna said, yoga karma sukaushalam. And that at that place, yoga is, the karma yoga is being talked about as yoga. So karma sukaushalam, meaning it is a way whereby we are all having rajogun within us. There's no person that doesn't have rajogun within themselves. It's a way of accepting your rajogun and then allowing it to manifest through a particular way, which is karma yoga. Here we're not rejecting any of the gunas. We're not saying one is bad or one is good, or accepting one and rejecting the other. Accept all first. And then when you realize that rajoguna is part of me, I can't stay without rajoguna because it's part of me. What will happen? Now you need to take it through a path. And that path will be karma yoga. When you take it through the path of karma yoga, rajoguna, even though it has that aspect of moving in circles, karma yoga itself, if you take it through the path of karma yoga, because yoga karma sukaushalam, yoga, that karma yoga is like the best of action that you can do. It's like that trick that you play in the action. You know, it's like that magic that happens in the action. It is action. It is Rajoguna, but it is that magic that happens in Rajoguna that takes you towards the center. It is that spiral. Yes, it will move in circles, but then it will spiral down into the center, because it will now be Rajoguna that will have Sattva Guna as its best. It will be based on Sattva Guna, and you will be directing it towards the center through Karma Yoga. Because if we say that, oh, I do not want Rajoguna, and then we keep it aside, what will happen? Rajoguna will manifest in other aspects of our life. For example, if I say, I do not want Rajoguna, I do not want to do action, and I'm just seated, what will happen? I will start having thoughts that will run without my control. And that is one aspect of Rajoguna. I'll start imagining things that I could have done. Now that is also part of Rajoguna, but now it is manifesting in your mind, because you're not allowing it to manifest through your body, through your actions. So if you deject one part of yourself, because the gunas are part of you, if you deject one part of yourself, what will happen? It will now manifest itself in another way, because you can't say it's not part of me, it's part of you. So it is that Karma Yoga is that magic that happens within Rajoguna, that it takes you towards the center.
Wonderful. I'll add one thing. So Rajagun, see, all these gunas are the faculties or what we are capable of doing. So we desire things. We have impulse towards action. Rajagun is describing that ability that we have, that's faculty that we have. Karma Yoga is a kind of a virtue. It is a way of using these faculties in work so that you move towards the center. So it is virtuous way of directing action. So it is at the level of virtue, whereas Rajagun is at the level of faculties. So that's how I think of it. Next up is going to be Rupali, followed by David. Rupali.
Hi, this was really amazing. I think, it brings me back to chapter 2 about being Sthita Prajna and being at the center. And so we started, like Krishna and Arjun start with, Krishna saying that you need to be at your center, you need to be Sthita Prajna, steadfast. But it has taken us all these 12 chapters to figure out what Sthita Prajna is. And that the biggest discovery for me was it's not being rigid, but being flexible. So that was one takeaway for me. The question I have is, you talked about diseases, that when you move away from the center, then you get you get sick and you feel not your full self. And that was something I wanted to ask, can you come back to the center and be free of diseases if you're going away from your center? And I've seen this in my own career, is when I'm focused and working towards the center, then it's all good. And then when I'm distracted and moving away, then you have all these other ailments. So if you could talk a little more about, one part is of the being at the center and being happy, and the other is when you move away from the center, you are facing your ailments. So how do you come back to the center? Thank you.
So now coming back to the center, that is what we're talking about smriti here now. Remembering who you are. Like, you may have gotten a glimpse of what the center is or how it looks like, how being in that state feels like. Now, there are those activities, physically or mentally, that we must have done to get towards the center. Those activities may be something at the peripheral, but accept them because they're part of you right now when you're not at the center. So when you come back to the peripheral, when you're pulled back by the peripheral, what you can do is go to those activities that you do. And such an activity should be in your daily life. Like if you can make it in your daily life, then whenever you're doing that activity, you remember what the center is like. And whenever you feel like I have drifted away from the center, just doing that activity or just even thinking about something like that will take you towards the center itself. For example, the concept of Om itself. It's about somebody who has gone towards the center, has realized what the center is. Now, whenever he's starting any action, they will start with Om, meaning that they want to remember what the center feels like first, and then go into any action. And then whenever they're drifting away from the center, going towards the peripheral, just remembering Om takes them back to the center. So also have something in your life which takes you towards the center just in an instant, whether it is verbal or it is an action or it is mental, that doesn't matter, but something that takes you towards the center instantaneously. And that comes through practice. If you have practiced one sort of activity that constantly allows you to go to the center, then that activity will allow you to go to the center, even however strong the peripheral may feel at a particular time or in a particular emotion. Just remembering that activity or doing that activity or remembering that thought will take you towards the center instantly.
Yogeshwar, I wanted to follow up on one part of Rupali's observation, and that is about the concept of Sthita Prajna. This is, I think, a good time to emphasize that. Could you talk a little bit about the concept of Sthita Prajna as much as you want?
Sure. So, Sthita Prajna. Prajna meaning, so there is pra and gya in prajna. Gya meaning knowledge. Gya meaning dhyana. And pra meaning prakrishtena sthita. He is knowing himself. He is in the knowledge of himself in the right way. Not just concepts built around, but being in yourself. Like right now, we are someone. We know who we are. We don't need to think about who we are. We don't need to build concepts about who we are. But still, we are not in the right being. We are not in sthita prajna sthiti because we're always moving around. Sometimes we're in a good mood, we're in a bad mood. Sometimes we're happy, we're in sorrow. So that's moving around the peripheral. Prajna meaning in who you really are, in the truth. And then sthita meaning constantly staying there. That is the concept of sthita prajna. And it was talked about in chapter 2 at the end, where Krishna asks about how that person, first of all, how he is himself, how he gets to that state, and then how he'll interact with other people as well when he's in that state. Krishna talks about the concept of sthita prajna, first of all, from the first step, like the last step we can talk about. The last step, which is the ultimate step of sthita prajna, meaning he's not touched by anything of the peripheral. However much the peripheral may have all the waves, like for example, the ocean, just talk about the ocean. However many waves there may be in the ocean, like mainly towards the evenings, the oceans become rough. So however rough the ocean may be, when you are the ocean itself and not identifying yourself with the waves, you're unmoved. You are there where you're supposed to be. And then however many rivers pour into you, you are just who you are. However many sense objects come from the outside, you are in the concept of sthita prajna. And if you like even listening to me or even listening to anything else, it's easier while listening. Or you can also do it while you're looking at something, but look at something or listen to something. Know that there is one, which is, there is one aspect of thought that is going to always come in the middle, because at this moment, we can't look or listen to something without the thought process in between. So know that the thought process is in between there. Know there is that aspect of thought process. And then try to think about it, like this thought process that is happening in between. Is it who I truly am? Or is it just some process that will come and go? Is it a wave or is it the ocean? Then that thought process itself, when you realize that I am not this thought process, go back. Because something is there that is constant, but I am not yet realizing it. So you go back step by step. And this will happen step by step. And then the next day, you may feel that, oh, I've gotten back to the thoughts now. But then again, from the thoughts, you go backwards until you realize that constant, that only sees or only listens without any thought arising within itself. The thoughts may arise, but those thoughts do not arise within the seer or the listener. When you realize that is when you realize that in experience, sthita prajna exists. Because right now, when we're talking about the concept of sthita prajna, it's just a concept that we'll also think about. Now, we'll contemplate upon it, we'll have our views upon it, and then how we can relate to somebody else. We'll have all those. Those are still concepts. Now, while we're thinking about that concept, it's not wrong to think about the concept. We should. While we're thinking about the concept, go behind the concept. Look at the constant behind the concept. Also have the concept running in your mind and look at something that is just looking at the concept or listening to the concept that is there. You may at some time feel that you've reached there, but still try going behind still, because you have to go to a point whereby everything is still. Nothing is moving. However many concepts run in your mind, whatever comes from the outside, from the peripheral, whatever sense object comes or whatever emotion you are in, you never feel that I am the one who is bored, or I am the one who is sukhi, meaning I am the one who is happy. That never happens when you're in that state. Because if you're happy, you'll also become sorrowful the next moment. That is part of the thought process. That is part of the emotions. Going behind, certainly, and looking at those emotions, looking at those thought processes, is sthita prajna. That is when you're able to stay there without being moved. And then Krishna also talks about this concept in chapter 2, whereby you can also, because you are not the thoughts, then you can, and you're not also the sense objects, then you can also pull back from the sense objects and pull back from the thoughts and allow yourself not to be in happiness or in sorrow. Just allow yourself to be different from all those.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Next up is going to be David, Penny, Rupali, and Evanik. David.
Yes, thanks, Yogeshwar and Shrikant. Now, Brahman, as we've discussed in all these chapters, is everything, in all actions, everywhere. And I'm trying to, both in Sattva Gunas, Rajagunas, and Tamagunas, and also in the center and the periphery. So, and you were talking about how to utilize that in all of us, including Krishna, have all these qualities of the gunas. So how is Krishna, or are we able to utilize, for example, the tamagunas, or utilize the periphery in our lives, and especially, for example, in the war, for Krishna to be able to win in this battlefield? Or should he be using the periphery as well? Should he be using all these aspects? Or should we, as you're saying elsewhere, just focus on the center and be in the center? Is that overly limiting in our capabilities, and to be able to utilize all aspects of ourselves and all aspects of Brahman?
That's why we need to realize that, yes, we are the center, but we are also integrated. The center as we are, it's also integrated with the peripheral and not unlinked to the peripheral. Everything is linked, integrated with each other. In that way, there is nothing void of yourself. Even your thoughts are there because you are there. Everything is integrated in that way. You should be using the center. You should be at the center. And then when you're at the center, you're able to use the peripheral as it's supposed to be used. Normally, if we identify ourselves only with the peripheral, we're moving always at the peripheral and we're getting moved. Getting to the center means you become still, you don't move. And then you will be so integrated with the peripheral that even without moving, you use the peripheral. And that's the concept of everything is Brahman. There's nothing void of Brahman. It's not that only the core is Brahman, but even the peripheral is part of the Brahman. Even the manifest is part of the unmanifest. It's an extension of the unmanifest. So in that way, that the Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Sattva-guna, it's not like you are different and they are different after a state. But before that state, you need to differentiate. And then after that state, you need to accept what is. If there may be something wrong that happens. If we just, something that we need to experience here, that if we just accept as we are right now, there's something wrong that can go, whereby we accept who we are, meaning there is no center to get towards, there's no Brahman to get towards. It's just how we are that we are. We are accepting ourselves as the peripheral, as moving, totally. We're not accepting ourselves as the Shaswata truth, as that truth that is unmoving and unchanged. When we are not at the center and we accept ourselves as the peripheral, when the peripheral changes, we are affected a lot. Like we're always in this, like we call it this, we're in the waves only. Yes, we are when we're in the waves, we are in the ocean. But what we need to realize is not identify ourselves with the waves, but identify ourselves with the ocean, and then say that the waves are part of the ocean. In that way, you're able to see the stillness and still do all the actions, rather than being moved by the actions themselves.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. So I see this as being similar to Wu Wei in Dao De Jing, what this is not about, this philosophy is not about center versus periphery. This is saying center is driving everything. So if you're operating from there, then you're able to be effective. You're actually very effective. And you're doing what you should be doing without being attached to the periphery, without being attached to your actions, to your emotions, to your thought. But you are very much acting fully from the center. And what that ends up being is wu wei. It's acting without acting. It is that's how I understand it. Next up is going to be Penny, Rupali, and Evanik. Penny.
Okay. I just, thinking about the three gunas, and Sattva and Rajas seem like they're kind of like beneficial to people, where Tamaguna doesn't seem, except that maybe you need to rest. You can't be active all the time. It seems like it's the negative one that's going to bring you where you don't want to be and further from the center. So if you were trying to reach closer to the center, that would be something that you would be trying to have as little of as possible. Is that the truth, or?
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, it is, as we shall see in chapter 17 and 18. Krishna will point out that those gunas take you away from the center. And it's like if you're always in sattva guna, then you'll always be at the center. If you're at the center and then you have sattva guna around you, then you'll always be able to stay at the center rather than drifting away. And tamoguna, rajoguna will drift you away from the center. But what Krishna here is saying is accepting everything as is, not dejecting one and allowing only one. Because as we have seen, is if you want sattva guna, it won't be able to stand on its own. It will have to stand on rajoguna and tamoguna itself. In our lives, like all these gunas are part of us, and allow all the gunas to act as per who we are. Because each of the gunas have a limit within ourselves. Like, well, if we give them percentages, they're not all maybe 33.33%. They're not all the same. One is above, like maybe one maybe 40, another 20, and then another maybe 40 again, something like that. So there is that aspect within ourselves. Allow those gunas to be. We are also made up of the gunas. For example, let's say somebody is mainly rajoguna. Don't say that person is bad. He has a way to get to the center, which is karma yoga. That's why there are all these different ways to get towards the center. Yeah? There's not only one way. It's because these gunas, who we are, is different from each other. We are totally different from each other. The way I am, maybe I may be sattva guni, and you may also be sattva guni, let's say. But then the percentages differ. Maybe I'm sattva guni with the next gun to sattva gun being tamo gun, while you're sattva guni with the next gun near sattva gun being rajogun. We are different in that way. Because when I fall back, I'll fall back to tamogun. When you fall back, you'll fall back to rajogun. Qualitatively, that's different. And that's why we have so many different paths to get towards the center. Not only one that only accepts sattva gun as one path to get towards the center. Also accept karma yoga to get towards the center. It's also a way. Use rajoguna with that small tweak that will take you towards the center. Even use tamoguna as that small tweak that will take you towards the center. Now, one great quality of a person with tamoguna is that he will not have running thoughts within his mind. While when we are seated, we can't sit and concentrate on one thing because we always have running thoughts within our minds. We're always thinking about something that we should do or something we have done that is good or bad, and thoughts are running between the past and the future. So when you're looking at tamoguna in that way, that person, if he wants to get towards the center now, he can sit and have no thought within himself. And that's a virtue whereby he can now build on that and make it flower by concentrating only on one. And it will be really easy for him to concentrate on one because there are no any other thoughts. When he's able to concentrate on one, just being seated, that is out of tamoguna, he's able to do that. That he's able to come towards the center, concentrating on himself now, concentrating towards the core, towards the center. Now, we always want to make one guna higher than the other. That is no problem. But then also accept that through tamoguna can we reach the ultimate, or through rajoguna can we reach the ultimate. It's about knowing the self as it is. Whether you know the self through any guna, doesn't matter. So first thing we need to do is allow each and every faculty within ourselves to be, because why I'm saying this is maybe, I don't know, maybe the person listening to this is tamoguni. What happens if he rejects his tamogun within himself and says, I should only accept sattvagun within myself? What will happen to such a person? One thing, he'll reject himself as he is. What will happen if he rejects himself? He will never be able to flower towards his own being. So one thing is accept. Don't run. When somebody says tamoguna is low, don't run away from tamoguna. Accept it, that it is. And then also accept it that it may drift you away from the center. And then accept it that it may also take you towards the center as well. Accept all the faculties of tamoguna, not only one side. Because if you are yourself tamoguni and then you say that it won't take me towards the center, it is the only way you are going to get to the center, no any other way. So accept everything first and then have your way of going towards the center.
Wonderful. So great question and great answer. So I want to recap it in a couple of ways. So firstly, in chapter 17 and 18, Krishna is going to expand on use of these gunas. So we're just beginning the discussion here of gunas. Second is Gita starts with acceptance. You have to accept your faculties, whatever faculties human beings have at one level. So that's one kind of acceptance. Second, as Yogeshwar is saying, there is an acceptance you have to have about your own current nature, that this is your tendencies. And knowing that is crucial. It's, acceptance is a starting point of doing anything. And Gita spends considerable amount of time almost lovingly looking at people, just like Krishna is doing for Arjun, and saying, if this is difficult for you, try this. If this is difficult for you, try this. Once you've been doing this for some time, this other thing will become possible. So it is a very human way. It's a very accepting, human, general purpose way for people as such. So thank you very much. Great question. Next up is Rupali, followed by Evanik. I want to just ask Yogeshwar one thing. Yogeshwar, what time do you need to leave today?
8:30.
Okay, very good. So so let's keep the questions brief. Rupali, followed by Evanik. Rupali.
So my question is about integration, and you had talked about, for a person to be steadfast and to approach with bhakti, then dhyana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, you should have an integration of all three all at once. And my question is, how can you be aware so that you know, are you in integration or are you functioning um, only in one area or not the other? Um, what does that integration look like? Thank you.
Wonderful. Great question. Evanik, go ahead and ask your question too. And then Yogeshwar can answer, whatever he wants to answer, and then go from there.
Sure. So, Yogeshwar, when you were talking about the concept and getting to the concept, is that the same as saying getting to the root of the thought, or finding out where that thought is coming from?
Yeah. So integration, one thing that Krishna is talking about the same thing in these verses, whereby if a person is at the center and can look at everything happening at the peripheral, then he is integrated. He is a person who can be at the center and allow the peripheral to happen. A person who is disintegrated will just allow one thing to happen and not the other. But a person who is integrated will allow everything to happen, including Rajogun, Sattvagun, or Tamogun, may it be. Then, in short, if I could answer Evanik as well, is that we being at the center, it is about when we are at the center, we don't need to think about it or contemplate about it. It's not even about finding the root of the thought. It's just looking at the thought. Like there's a faculty within yourself. There is something within yourself. I'm not giving it a name, because when you give it a name, again, we'll start thinking about the name and what the name means. So not giving it a name. There is something within us that can just look at everything happening, whether it's a thought, an emotion, or anything. Just look at it. Don't look for the root of it. Don't look for the cause or the effect. Just look at what is happening. Whether it's a thought, an emotion, or anything from outside to your body, anything. If you can just look at it, if you can just hear it, then you'll realize that that who is looking or who is hearing is the truth.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. All right, folks. So we have finished chapter 14. Tomorrow, we're going to start with chapter 15. That's amazing, amazing chapter. I want to tell you about two other meetups that are coming up, which are really fascinating. On Sunday at 9 p.m., I'm doing a meetup. We're going to do a meetup on Stoicism. And I'm going to be using the 8-stage discussion format to discuss the 3 greatest insights people have gotten from their study of Stoicism. And then we are going to use the same format on Wednesday to discuss conversation. What do you think is great conversation? How do you conduct good one-on-one conversation? How do you conduct good conversation in a group? What are the values you get from conversation? We're going to explore the topic of conversation itself. So it's going to be a conversation about conversation, again, in 8 stages. The 8-stage format is designed to look at a topic from multiple angles. So it uses like these, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, and dhyana yoga. It uses the 8 cognitive functions of Jung. It's inspired by that. It's inspired by my diagram. It's basically application of my diagram to discussion. So far we've done 2 such discussions, one on comprehensivism and one on Carl Jung's ideas, and both were amazing. So I'm really looking forward to this. So it's going to be Sunday at 9 p.m. is going to be Stoicism's 3 Great Insights, and Wednesday at 9 p.m. is going to be Conversation. And tomorrow we are starting chapter 15. So thank you very much, everybody. Really looking forward to continuing this dialogue. Good night. Or good
Thank
morning
you.
to those who
Bye.
are in
Thank you.
India.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.